Good morning students. Today is lecture 16 of our module 6. So, as you know that we have been started from this module onwards, we will be discussing mainly about the membrane, different types of membranes and their applications basically. So, today we will discuss about RO, its history, principle, membrane materials, there are different types of modules and the models that is required for the RO transport. Now, henceforth in most of the modules later on in our lectures, we will be discussing like we are as we are starting with RO, then we will discuss ultrafiltration, microfiltration, then other membrane processes like electrodialysis, pervaporation. So, one thing you will find that may be little common is about the membrane materials and the membrane modules. Now, you know materials and modules we have discussed in general in one of our or two of our classes, the membrane material properties and the modules, different types of modules, its advantages, disadvantages. However, nevertheless, it is very important that all the these two things like membrane materials and modules has to be read again under subsequent membrane processes such as RO, microfiltration, ultrafiltration and other things. So, it is important as to understand that all the membrane materials and all the modules are not going to be used universally for all processes like RO, microfiltration or ultrafiltration. That is why it is required to be repeated. So, do not think that it is getting repeated, it is not so, it is needed to understand that what are the materials and modules are fit for particular membrane applications. Now, today we will discuss about the RO and its membranes, materials and modules. So, before that we will discuss little about the principle. So, you know RO is a special type of filtration that uses a semi permeable thin membrane with pores small enough to pass pure water while rejecting larger molecules such as dissolved salts and other impurities such as bacteria. In our last class we have discussed about the principles of osmosis and reverse osmosis, and we have understood how osmosis works and how reverse osmosis works. So, just quickly we are going through what we have discussed earlier. So, you know that this is the semi permeable membrane. Here this is the concentrated phase and this is the dilute phase, right. So, as you know that in RO we need to apply the pressure which should be sufficient enough to overcome the osmotic pressure, right. So, that is why the applied pressure whatever we are applying here must overcome the delta pi or the osmotic pressure difference, so that the flow of water from the concentrated site will go to the dilute site, okay, against its chemical potential gradient. So, that is why we need to overcome the osmotic pressure difference. Now, higher pressure is required to filter sea water than that is required for the brackish water. Okay. The reason is that sea water is more concentrated, almost 35,000 ppm. I am just talking about the sodium chloride concentration. In brackish water it is less, 5,000, 6,000. So, let us understand the history of the reverse osmosis. So, you can see that 1960 it started actually. Desalination capability of cellulose acetate thin film demonstrated by Brenton and Reid in 1959. So, in 1960 it was adapted. Okay. Then asymmetric cellulose acetate membrane developed by Lowry and Sourirajan. You know this is one of the most important breakthrough in the membrane science and technology. That is in 1964 or 65 if I correctly remember. Then first practical spiral wood module was designed by General Atomics in 1963. Then DuPont has successfully fabricated the first hollow fiber module in 1967, and again these were all applied for the desalination processes. Then the most important breakthrough again come which is the interfacial composite membrane development. CADOT has developed this type of membrane, composite membrane in 1972. Then first commercial interfacial composite membrane was proposed by the Fluid Systems, and commercial application was successfully demonstrated for the seawater plant in Jeddah, Saudi Arabia in 1975. Then first fully automatic thin film composite, okay, the TFC membrane which is the brand name is given by FT30, okay, was invented by Cadott in 1978. Then subsequently so many other developments has taken place, like low pressure nanofiltration membrane and proposed by Nitto Denko and Filmtech in 1986. Then in 2000 Grace Davison and Mobile installed the first large hyperfiltration solvent separation plant, okay, in Texas refinery, that is in 1919. See, this is one of the major development which is outside of the desalination systems. So, a reverse osmosis system is built around its individual membranes. Each membrane is a spiral wound sheet of semi-permeable membrane. Membranes are available in 2 inch, 4 inch, in 8 inch diameter, and the 4 inch and 8 inch diameter sizes are most commonly used in industry. The industry has accepted a 40 inch length as the standard size, okay, so that membranes from different manufacturers are interchangeable in equipment systems. So, this is all membrane manufacturing companies who are making especially RO membranes. Have agreed that 40 inch is the 40 inch length is the maximum length for their RO modules, okay. So, that if you do not have a particular company make membrane also, you can interchange it with another component. So, the length will not create any problem. So, one of the primary measurements of a membrane is its square footage. So, membranes are available in the range of 350 to 450 square feet of the surface area. Semi-permeable membranes were first constructed using cellulose acetate Ca, but later industry switched primarily to the use of the thin film composite. Okay, this we have discussed in detail about thin film composite when we were discussing about membrane preparations being placed on the top of a stronger substrate. Now, most of the membranes RO membranes what we are seeing today available commercially are all TFC, not all, but subsequently the majority of them are all TFC membranes. So, let us understand the principle little more, then we will go ahead and discuss about the modules and materials. So, RO is continuously operating treatment technology that uses pressure to pass source water through a thin membrane and thereby separating impurities from the water. So, you are just applying the pressure to overcome the delta pi, the osmotic pressure, so that flow from the contaminated water or concentrated water will go inside or will pass through the membrane, and then we will go move to the lower contaminated or lower concentrated side. Here we are talking about contamination because we are talking about seawater desalination or brackish water desalination, the major applications of the reverse osmosis. So, it works by reversing the principle of osmosis, the natural tendency of water with dissolved salts to flow through a membrane from lower to higher salt concentration. This process is found throughout nature. Now, plants use it to absorb water and nutrients from the soil. In humans and other animals, kidneys use osmosis to absorb water from blood. In a RO system, pressure usually from a pump is used to overcome natural osmotic pressure, forcing feed water with its load of dissolved salts and other impurities through a highly sophisticated semi-permeable membrane that removes a high percentage of the impurities. Now, it is worthy to mention here that whenever we are talking about desalination of seawater and or brackish water, it is important to note that they do not only contain the sodium chloride, okay, they contain so many different things. You know, seawater contains so many different things. There are so many bacteria present, other microorganisms present, and there are other components who actually foul a lot. Immediately they will foul. So, biofouling is a problem. Okay. Apart from that, there are other smaller and higher molecular weight salts also. It is not that only it is sodium chloride. Okay. So, all these things needs to be taken into consideration when you are actually designing a RO membrane, right, for a desalination purposes. The rejected salts and impurities concentrate above the membrane and are passed from the system to drain or onto other processes. Now, in a typical commercial industrial application, 75% of the feed water is purified. In applications in which water conservation is important, almost 85% of the feed water is purified. An RO system usually uses a cross flow filtration mechanism where the solution crosses the filter with two outlets. The filtered water goes on one way and the contaminated water goes in the other way, in the opposite direction basically. So, salt and water permeates reverse osmosis membranes according to the solution diffusion transport mechanism. We have discussed solution diffusion in detail. Today also we will just briefly touch it. The water flux is linked to the pressure and concentration gradients across the membrane by this equation. Okay. So, Ji equals to A into delta P minus delta pi. So, where P is the pressure difference across the membrane and pi is the osmotic pressure difference and A is the constant, proportionality constant or phenomenological coefficient, whatever you can call it. So, when the applied pressure is higher than the osmotic pressure, so P greater than pi, water flows from the concentrated to the dilute salt solution side of the membrane. The salt flux across a reverse osmosis membrane is described by the equation Jj equals to B into Cj naught minus Cj L. So, where B is the salt permeability constant and Cj naught and Cje or Cjl are the salt concentration in the feed and permeate sides of the membrane. Now, the concentration of salt in the permeate solution is usually much smaller than the concentration in the feed side. So, many times we can neglect this term, right. So, hence our equation will become Jj equals to B into Cj naught. So, it follows from these above two equations that water flux is proportional to the applied pressure, but salt flux is independent of the pressure. It is very important to note this. So, this means that the membrane becomes more selective as the pressure increases, right. So, water flux is obviously consequence to the applied pressure, whatever we are applying the pressure, okay, but salt flux has nothing to do with the pressure. So, the membrane rejection can be expressed by this particular equation. So, R equals to 1 minus rho I into B divided by A into delta P minus delta pi into 100%. 100% means it will in percentage actually R will be expressed. So, that is why 100% is being multiplied. So, the effect of feed pressure on membrane performance is shown in this particular figure. So, you can see that at a pressure equal to the osmotic pressure of the feed, that is 350 psi somewhere here, okay, the water flux equals to 0, right. Thereafter it increases linearly, you can see this, it is increasing linearly, this is your water flux, okay. As the pressure is increasing, as we are increasing the pressure, the water flux is linearly increasing. The salt rejection, this is the profile of the salt rejection. You can see that the salt rejection also extrapolates at 0, it is also starting from 0, okay, at a feed pressure of 350 psi, but increases very rapidly, okay, with increased pressure to reach salt rejection of more than 99. This is above 99%, you can see the salt rejection, okay, it is almost 99.5% at an applied pressure of 700 psi. So, here almost the 700 psi. So, you can see at this pressure it is almost reaching 99.5% salt rejection. So, this indicates that high salt rejection is happening at higher pressure, almost twice the feed solution osmotic pressure. Okay, see this particular figure, this data was generated at 25 degree centigrade with a 3.5% sodium chloride concentration. For RO systems to produce product water, a minimum pressure to overcome the natural osmotic pressure of the water must be applied to the membrane. Now, this pressure depends on types of ions present, right, and their concentration in the water. As I was just mentioning that, please do not think that whenever desalination of seawater or brackish water is happening, it is only sodium chloride, it is not that. There are so many magnesium, calcium, so many things are there, chlorine will be there, biofoulant will be there. So, apart from that, so many other ions of smaller and bigger size also present. So, the pressure whatever we are applying is obviously depends on the types of ion presence and their subsequent concentrations in the water. Osmotic pressure does not depend on the type of the membrane. This is also very important to understand, right. Roughly every 100 ppm, ppm means parts per million, milligrams per liter of total dissolved solids contributes about 1 psi of osmotic pressure. So, this is some sort of thumb rule you can say. So, for instance, if the total dissolved solid of feed water is about almost 2000 ppm, then the natural osmotic pressure is about 20 psi. So, you can actually guess it from this particular understanding that for every 100 ppm of TDS, the osmotic pressure corresponding is generated is almost 1 psi. So, in this case, a pressure of at least 20 psi must be applied before any permeate that will come through the membrane. Generally, the applied pressure is at least twice the osmotic pressure for a viable RO system. Now, as applied pressure gets lower and approach the osmotic pressure, the effect on the permeate flow and permeate quality gets more pronounced. Now, you can see this particular table below. So, this gives an example of how permeate quality and quantity for a membrane may change as the pressure is reduced. So, this analysis or this table is generated, the data is generated based on a 500 ppm TDS water, 60 degree Fahrenheit temperature and applied pressure, that is shown in here. You just have a look at this particular table, you can see when the applied pressure is higher at 200 psi, you can see this permeate flow is 100 and percentage rejection is 98.4. As the pressure actually decreased, so you can say the permeate flow as well as here the percentage rejection is decreasing. So, you can say that when let us say we are starting from the below, we are moving from lower to higher side pressure. So, your permeate flow increases as well as your percentage rejection also increases. So, now let us talk about the membrane materials. Membrane materials for RO. So, a number of membrane materials and membrane preparation techniques have been used to make RO membranes. The target of much of the early work was seawater desalination, about 3.5% weight percent of salt. So, RO was primarily developed for desalination purposes. Now also RO is primarily used also for desalination purposes, though RO being used for other purposes also, other applications also. So, it requires membranes with salt rejections of greater than 99.3% to produce an acceptable permeate containing less than 500 ppm salt. Now, early membranes could only meet this target performance when operated at very high pressures, let us say about 1500 psi. As membrane performance has improved, this pressure has dropped to 100 to 1000 psi. Membrane performance has improved basically due to the breakthrough in membrane manufacturing, right. So, recently the need for desalination membrane has shifted more to brackish water feeds with salt concentration of almost 0.2 to 0.5 weight percent. Now, for this application, membranes are typically operated at a pressure of a range of 150 to 400 psi with a target salt rejection of about 99%. RO membranes do not have definable pores in the way that the films used in the ultrafiltration do. So, you need to understand the difference between ultrafiltration membranes and RO membranes. They are all asymmetric membranes. However, ultrafiltration membranes, even if asymmetric, they contain pores. However, RO membranes, they do not have distinct or definable pores. So, there are only spaces between fibers making up the film which can take up water because of the acytyl or similar groupings which form the surface. So, the dense layer of active surface is about 0.25 microns, that is the thickness of the dense layer supported by a thicker porous layer. So, let us see the cellulosic membrane. Now, cellulose acetate was the first high performance RO membrane material that was discovered, and the flux and rejection of cellulose acetate membranes have now been surpassed by interfacial composite membrane with the development of the interfacial composite membrane. Now, the water and salt permeability of cellulose acetate membrane is extremely sensitive to the degree of acetylation of the polymer used to make the membrane. We have understood what is degree of acetylation when we discussed cellulose and its properties. Then fully substituted cellulose triacetate CTA, almost 44.2 weight percent acetate, has an extremely high water to salt permeability ratio, reflecting its very high selectivity, however with a low water fluxes. So, the selectivity has increases, but the water flux has actually decreased. So, this is a Lonsdale study in 1965. You can see that water permeability is decreasing here with acetyl content. However, water to salt permeability is increasing, right. So, CTA hollow fiber membranes are still produced for some seawater desalination plants because salt rejections of about 99.5% with a seawater feed are attainable. However, most commercial cellulose acetate membranes use a polymer containing about 40 weight percent acetate with a degree of acetylation of almost 2.7. So, you can see here this particular figure, it is a plot versus water permeability versus sodium chloride permeability, water versus salt permeability actually. So, membranes use these membranes generally achieve 98 to 99% sodium chloride rejection. So, you can see the solute rejection here, right, 99%, here solute rejection of 99.9%. with reasonably good fluxes. Thick films of cellulose acetate made from 39.8% acetate polymer should reject 99.5% sodium chloride. So, this is already been proved and commercially adapted also. In practice, this theoretical rejection is very difficult to obtain with practical thin membranes. So, almost it has been reduced to 98.5, 8.9, close to 99, however, not much reduction. So, theoretical this one commercial membrane when it was prepared, these thin membranes, okay, they do not actually exactly matches the theoretical predictions of this 99.5%, okay, however, they are very close. That is why they have gained a lot of popularity nowadays, right. So, throughout the 1960s, considerable effort was expended on the understanding of the Loeb-Souri-Rajan membrane production process to improve the quality of the membranes produced. Right. Some important parameters that can affect the quality of membrane are the casting solution composition, the time of evaporation before precipitation, temperature of the precipitation bath and the temperature of the annealing step. Most of the early membranes were made up of this 39.8 wet percent acetate polymer, because this material was readily available and has the most convenient solubility properties. By 1970s, better membranes were made by blending 39.8 wet percent acetate polymer with small amount of triacetate polymer, okay, and other cellulose esters such as cellulose acetate butyrate. Now, these blends are generally used to form current cellulose acetate membranes. So, you can see this is a classic example of cellulose acetate based thin film nanocomposite RO membrane incorporated with the titanium dioxide nanoparticles. So, what is the composition here? This composition is cellulose acetate, you can see here, then PEG is polyethylene glycol, then titanium dioxide nanoparticles are infused into this. What is the reason for this? The reason is that using the nanoparticles, so they disperse very quickly in a very homogeneous manner, and thereby they strengthen the membrane properties, okay, and the permeability also becomes better. Right. So, anyway, this is a research output by these particular people. Okay. They have characterized their membrane using FTIR, SAM, XRD, TGA, antibacterial resistance and chlorine resistance also. So, when we talk about RO membranes, what should be their properties? It is very important to note few things. Of course, the membrane material is very important. Apart from that, how much is the solute permeability, how much is or the salt permeability, and how much is the water permeability, because mostly where the membrane RO membrane's job is that it will allow the water to pass through the other side, thereby retaining the salt. You can see here also that most of the salts are getting retained here, only the water, okay, is come this side. So, this is the permeate side, this is your feed side. A very small amount of salt will of course pass through, because by nature all membranes are like that. Okay. So, it will since they have very in that interspaces between the membrane material, no, so the salts passes through. So, you get very less amount, but it is the amount is extremely less. So, we have just discussed that almost there are membranes which can which were prepared of almost 99.5% salt rejection, even more than that 99.9%, right. The advantages of cellulosic membrane is that it is easy to make, they are mechanically tough, cellulose acetate has a higher flux, resistant to small concentrations of free chlorine, can be kept free of bacteria and also produce a product with residual chlorine in it to prevent subsequent regrowth, that is also very important. Okay. Cellulose acetate membranes are suitable for feed water having significant biological loading. However, cellulosic materials are not the only materials that are being used right now for commercial RO membranes. There are non-cellulosic membranes also. So, let us understand and discuss a little about the non-cellulosic polymeric membranes. So, during the 1960s and 70s, many polymers are evaluated as Loeb and Souri-Rajan membranes, but few matched the properties of the cellulose acetate. Following the development of the interfacial composite membrane by Cadott, this line of research was abandoned and by most commercial membrane producers, because everybody has shifted to the interfacial composite membranes because of the better properties. Nevertheless, a few commercially successful non-cellulosic membrane materials were developed. Polyamide is such one of the membrane material which is widely used and developed by several membrane manufacturers. So, these membranes have good seawater salt rejection up to almost 99.5%, but the fluxes are very low. So, in the range of 1 to 3 gallon per feet square per day range. So, due to the extremely low flux ranges, actually these non-cellulosic membrane materials are not have not gained much importance to prepare RO membranes. So, later Permasafe membrane in hollow fiber form, they have used this aromatic polyamide. This is the structure of aromatic polyamide. So, DuPont has prepared this membrane. Permasafe B15 is the brand name actually, or the trade name. This is a hollow fine fibers. So, this was prepared for the seawater desalination purposes. Okay. So, Loeb and Sourirajan based membranes based on sulfonated polysulfone and substituted polyvinyl alcohol were also produced by Hydronautics. Okay, that is the NITO, the brand name. So, these are actually based membranes based on sulfonated polysulfone. You can see the sulfonated groups here. Okay, and substituted polyvinyl alcohol produced by the Hydronautics here, but this is for the nanofiltration applications. So, the advantages of non-cellulosic polymer membrane is that of course, their seawater salt rejections is up to 99.5%, high flux especially for the polysulfone and substituted polyvinyl alcohol. Now, these two membranes have given high flux, low rejection membranes in water softening applications because of their high divalent ion rejection and high chlorine resistance, able to withstand up to 40,000 ppm hour. So, next class is of membranes for RO is that interfacial composite membranes. Now, polyamide interfacial composite membranes are the most popular commercial form of RO membranes as well as nanofiltration membranes. Now, the ability to independently tailor support layer and thin film characteristics permitted optimization of the overall composite membrane structure, permeability, selectivity as well as stability. In general, interfacial composite membranes are formed over porous supports by in situ polycondensation of polyfunctional amine and acid chloride monomers at the interface of the solvent. Now, students, we have understood how the interfacial polymerization actually works. So, I am not going to repeat this, we know how it actually works. You need a amine, then you just quickly I am going to tell I am telling you. So, you have a membrane. Okay. So, let us say this is a I am just trying to let us say this is a membrane having some types of holes. So, you impregnate this with some your amine, right. Okay. So, that goes into the pores and on the surface, then you keep it in contact with the acid chloride, right. So, this is your amine and this is your acid chloride. Now, once it comes into contact with that, your cross linked or polymerization begins. Okay. So, what you will achieve actually something like this, right. So, thin film, now basically very thin film will come. So, very thin layer of film will come here on the surface, right. So, this is how actually so we discussed this in detail in interfacial polymerization. So, it is very important to know this process because most of the commercial membranes are being prepared nowadays and you can prepare it in the lab scale also. So, factors influencing the physicochemical properties, chemical structure, physical morphology, interfacial properties, separation performance of the composite RO membranes. So, they include actually support membrane structure and chemistry. Though support membrane is giving the mechanical support, however, its chemistry and structure is also plays an important role. So, monomer structures and concentration, polar and apolar solvent selection, catalyst and other additives if at all it is there, but it is not present always, reaction temperature and time and curing temperature and time. This is a structure of FT30 membrane that is developed by Cadotay, right, which has an all aromatic structure based on the reaction of phenylene diamine and trimethyl chloride. Okay. So, this is the phenylene amine is the amine and trimethyl chloride is the acid chloride. Okay. So, this chemistry is now used in modified form by all major RO membrane producers. Most of the membrane manufacturers has adapted this materials actually. So, now let us understand in a nutshell the features of major interfacial polymerization RO membranes which are commercially available. We will discuss 3 or 4 out of this, 4 actually. So, the first one you can see this NS100. So, NS100 is the brand name or the trade name. So, the membrane material is polyethylene imine cross linked with toluene 2,4 diisocyanate. So, this is the membrane materials, right. So, the developer is Cadotte in North Star Research. So, what are its properties? Now, this is the first interfacial composite membrane that achieved a desalination of almost 99%, greater than 99% of the rejection, and 18 gallon per feet square per day is the flux with 1500 psi seawater. Now, the next is PA 300 RC 100. Okay. What are those? Now, those are ipamine cross linked with isothallyl or toluene 2,4 diisocyanate. So, Relay et al. Has produced this membrane or developed this membrane at Fluid System San Diego. So, the PA 300 membrane based on isothallyl chloride was introduced first, but RC 100 based on toluene 2,4 diisocyanate proved more stable. The stability is better for the RC 100 membrane based compared to PA 300 membrane. Now, this membrane is used as the first stage RO seawater desalination plant that in one of the slide I have told you about. Na? So, this was used in Jeddah in Saudi Arabia for desalination plant. So, the next is NF40 and NTR 7250. So, these are piperazine cross linked with triamosyl chloride. So, Cadet has prepared the developed this at Filmtech and Kamiyama at Nitto-Denko. The first all monomeric interfacial membrane, these membranes. Okay. So, only modest seawater desalination properties, but extremely good as a brackish water membrane. Okay. Because as you know the concentration of the ions are less in brackish water. So, this particular membrane proved to be very good for the brackish water and more chlorine tolerant than earlier membranes because of the absence of secondary amine bonds. So, the next membrane is FT30 and SW30. So, this is M-phenylenediamine diamine cross linked with triamosyl chloride. So, Cadotte at Filmtech has developed this. So, this is an all aromatic highly cross linked structure giving exceptional salt rejection and very high fluxes. Now, by tailoring the preparation techniques, brackish water or seawater membranes can be made. Seawater membranes has a rejection of almost 99.3 to 99.5% at 800 psi. Brackish water version has greater than 99% salt rejection at 25 gallon per feet square per day and 225 psi. So, all major RO companies produce variations of this membrane. So, the advantages of interfacial composite membranes are that high flux, high rejection that can be made using this particular technique. Membrane could also be operated at a temperature above 35 degrees centigrade. This is one of the again major advantage. So, typical membranes tested with 3.5% sodium chloride solutions have a salt rejection of 99.5% and a water flux of 30 gallon per feet square. So, you can see this though with other membrane materials and other techniques also we get very good amount of rejection. However, the flux is not good about 1 to 5 or less than 10 gallon per feet square. So, you can see here it is higher 30. So, the rejection of low molecular weight dissolved organic solutes is also far better than the cellulose ester membranes. So, other membrane materials are the interesting group, an interesting group of composite membranes with very good properties is produced by condensation of furfuryl alcohol with sulfuric acid by Cadotte at North Star Research and was known as NS200 membrane, the trade name. These membranes are prepared by contacting a polysulfone microporous support with an aqueous solution of furfuryl alcohol and then with sulfuric acid. The coated support is then heated to 140 degrees centigrade. The furfuryl alcohol forms a polymerized cross-linked layer on the polysulfone support. Now, these membranes have exceptional properties including seawater salt rejection of 99.6% and a fluxes of 23 gallon per feet square day. So, you can see the flux is also very good in this. This is the structure of the NS200 condensation membrane. Then Kurihara and co-workers at Toray, one of the leading membrane manufacturer, produced a related membrane using 1,3,5 tris hydroxyl ethyl isocyanuric acid as the co-monomer. Okay, so this is the reaction sequence of the Torres PEC 1000 membrane. You can see this membrane commercialized by Torre under the trade name PEC 1000 has the highest rejection of any membrane that is developed, with seawater rejection of 99.9% and fluxes of 12 gallon per feet square per day, but you can see that the flux is less. So, in earlier membranes we have seen that whether it is interfacial polymerization or even here just before the membrane which we discussed on the previous slide, you can see that the rejection in 99.5%, flux was good, but here the flux is little compromised. The membrane also shows highest non rejections to low molecular weight organic components solutes. Now, please understand that as I was telling continuously in this lecture that seawater, even brackish water, contains so many other lower molecular weight organic solutes. So, their rejection is also equally important, okay, because we only want the solvent to flow, that is the water to flow to the permeate side. So, this particular membrane is extremely good for rejecting the low molecular weight organic solutes. So, you need to balance it things, because what is the real intention? Are you going to use the RO permeate as a potable water? Then you need to get devoid of all these things. So, for that maybe this particular membrane looks good, of course with a little compromise with the flux. Now, let us quickly understood the different RO modules. So, there are 4 different types of RO modules which are used for reverse osmosis processes, mainly the desalination applications. So, these are tubular, platen frame, spiral and hollow fiber. So, all these we have discussed, but since I am telling you that under every membrane processes, whether it is RO, microfiltration, ultrafiltration, we will discuss this in a brief. So, that you need to understand that which particular membrane module is good for that particular membrane applications. So, if you look at system costs, cost is very important from any process industries. So, a cost wise tubular or plate frame modules are higher than the hollow fiber and spiral. Design flexibility, if you think, then spiral is better than hollow fiber, and spiral is tougher than hollow fiber and platen frame and tubular. Then required system space, tubular is better, followed by platen frame, spiral and hollow fiber, and susceptibility fouling, then hollow fiber is greater than spiral or higher than spiral, platform and tubular, and energy use, tubular is far better than spiral. So, let us understand the hollow fiber module for RO. So, hollow fine fiber modules made from cellulose triacetate or aromatic polyamides were produced in the past for seawater desalination. These modules incorporated the membranes around a central tube and the feed solution flowed rapidly outward to the cell. So, you can see this is a single, this whatever I have shown here. So, this is a single channel hollow fiber. You can see the feed is flowing through the lumen, okay, or inside the hollow fiber, okay, and the permeate that is coming out here from the membrane, and this is your membrane and this is your support, okay, and you get a retentate here. Because the fibers were extremely tightly packed inside the pressure vessel, flow of the feed solution is quite slow. As much as 40 to 50% of the feed could be removed as permeate in a single pass through the module. Now, as I was showing you this particular structure, na, actually this one porous support along with a membrane. So, this is, you can see how beautifully this scanning electron microscope is showing us. You can see this is your porous layer, thickness of the porous layer, whereas this is your membrane. Okay. So, this is your usual membrane, this is your porous support. So, this same image is telling us very nicely actually how this is the cross section of a tubular membrane. So, how actually 2 distinct layers are visible, the porous support as well as the membrane layer. So, this is a cross flow hollow fiber module. This is used to obtain better flow distribution and reduce concentration polarization. So, this is actually the Toivo hollow shape RO module. The membrane material here is actually cellulose triacetate, and you can see that the feed enters here, okay. So, through a perforated central pipe, right. So, and the flow towards the module cell, okay, and you can get here product water here. So, that is actually the permeate and the concentrated water here, okay. and the feed this particular Toiba's hollow shape RO module is very famous for two things. One is very good chlorine resistance as well as extremely good biofouling properties, right. So, let us understand the advantages and disadvantages of the hollow fiber systems. So, hollow fiber membranes feature a very high packing density because of the small standard diameter. Now, because of the flexibility of the strands, that means the individual tubes, certain fiber filter configurations are possible that cannot achieve in other filter configurations. That is one of the very good thing about this particular hollow fiber systems. They can also be back flushed from the permeate side and air scout and can process feed streams with extremely high TSS, total suspended solids. However, the disadvantage is that irreversible fouling and fiber breakage are the main problem. Because of the flexibility of the fibers, they are more likely to break when under high strain compression. Let us consider these are small fibers, okay. So, single fibers, so they are fused together, okay, right. So, they do not have any mechanical support inside. So, due to this, whenever you are applying a very high pressure, so this fiber, okay, they may become like this, they may behave like this, okay, and they will get distorted due to the higher pressure. So, that is why they will twist basically. So, that is why this will create flux problem as well as problem in separation, and hollow fiber membranes tend to have moderate capital cost, but high operating cost compared to other configurations. So, operating cost is actually little higher. So, next category is spiral wound. So, in the past 20 years considerable improvement in seawater spiral wound elements have been made, and the capacity of an 8-inch element has been doubled, whereas the salt passage is about 3 times less. It has been possible to increase the active area in an 8-inch module from 300 feet square in the early days to 440 feet square in 1980, and now further increases has also been possible. Now, these increases are possible while feed spacer thickness is maintained and geometry improved. Now, the development of elements with a larger diameter allows a factor 4.3 increase in membrane area to almost 1725 feet square, and by this allows significant savings. So, furthermore, the maximum operating pressure for spiral wound elements were 69 bar, close to 1000 psi in the past. Recent improvements in the membrane stability and permeate spacer technology of some manufacturers have increased the maximum pressure to 82.7 bar to 1200 psi. Recent achievements as well as continued development of spiral wound membrane module design is contributing to significant cost savings in the RO technology. Now, it offers to make this technology even more widely available for sustainable and affordable water production in many parts of the world. Now, let us understand and quickly go through. We have seen this earlier also when we discussed the modules, but again it is better to understand with respect to RO. You can understand that how the spiral wound is that. Imagine that you are having the A4 size papers which you are folding, you are just wrapping it like this, you are folding it, okay. So, within two A4 size sheets you have a feed spacer, okay. So, this you can see this channeling type of thing you are seeing. So, this is your feed spacer. Usually they are made up of some very maybe stainless steel or some other metal alloys, okay. Then they are wrapped it, right. So, once it is done, that is done, that wrapping is done, then you have to attach permeate spacer. You can see this is a permeate spacer here, okay, and this is the central permeate tube. So, that is a central tube like this over which you are wrapping or you are this one folding the membranes as well as the feed spacer. To that. So, the job of feed spacer is to distribute the feed across the entire membrane, so that there is no dead space available in the membrane, or the entire area should be utilized. Okay. So, the feed actually flows like this in this direction. Okay. So, you get retentant here, right. So, this is feed flow, however, your permeate is flowing in this direction. Okay. So, you get at the overall permeate here. You can see this is the spiral wound module cross section, okay. So, this is the permeate tube, okay, inside of the permeate tube through which the permeate is getting collected and you are getting here. Okay. And you can see how the cross section looks like. This is the outer cover and this is the feed spacer here, right, and this is the permeate flow is happening here and this is the permeate collection tube. So, spiralude elements come in multiple configurations with different spacers, membrane types, lengths and diameters that allow it to be used in a wide variety of applications. Now, these elements have a very high packing density, surpassing the packing density of plate and frame, tubular and capillary configurations. Now, spiral membranes also allow for easy cleaning through the cleaning in place technology. Additionally, spiralude elements offer the best value per membrane area, smallest footprint, robust design which prevents membrane breakage with respect to, or if you compare it to the hollow fiber systems, and has relatively low capital and operating cost. However, they have certain disadvantages also. So, spiral element fouling is greater than the fouling in other tubular systems. So, due to the high packing density, the TSS, that is the total suspended solids, must be reduced to a minimum of less than 5 milligrams per liter in the feed stream to prevent plugging. Now, we just discussed that TSS handling is far better in tubular systems, okay, which is not so in spiral systems. So, spiral elements cannot handle mechanical cleaning like tubular elements and contain lower packing density than hollow fibers. Now, next category is plate and frame module. Plate and frame module membrane systems utilize membrane laid on the top of plate like structure, which in turn is held together by a frame like support. Now, flat sheet membranes are bolted together with a frame around the perimeter, similar to a heat exchanger or filter press. If you have seen the filter frame and filter press in the labs, usually it is being shown in the mechanical operations lab. Okay. So, there are two types of plate and frame module configuration possible, one is in dead end, another is cross flow. So, in dead end plate and frame system, the feed solution flows perpendicular, okay, whereas in cross flow systems it is tangential. So, this we have known. So, this is actually how the feed is flow in dead end and this is how the feed this is the membrane, okay, and this is dead end, right, and this is how it happens in cross flow. Because of the flow is perpendicular to the membrane, dead end plate and frame works better, works through a process called the cake filtration in the dead end system actually. So, the cake filtration starts when the feed solution passes through the filter plates and creates a build up on the solids on the surface. So, basically on the membrane your cake starts build up, this some sort of concentration polarization is happening, okay. Then when it grows, the layer grows, so you get a cake layer. This build up or cake layer reduces the effective pore size opening of the filter and helps improve the filtration of the feed solution. In cross flow membrane, feed enters on one side of the plate and frame membrane and concentrate gets collected on the other side of the plate. Okay. So, permeate travels through the membrane and collects at the inside of the supporting plate. So, this is how a plate and frame module configuration looks like. So, these colors actually that is membrane material. So, this is membrane, right, and feed is entering and it is channeling. You can see how it getting flow, the feed flow. Once it comes here, crosses these three membrane systems 1, 2, 3, okay, another membrane, then it goes and flow like this, then again it goes. So, you get retentate here and the overall permeate here. So, then there are support plates and permeate collectors inside that. It is a very easy system, easy to manufacture also and easy to handle also. So, the advantages are the main advantage is that it includes solids being able to solids being able to easily separated from water and easy removal and cleaning of filter surfaces. So, mechanical cleaning is very easy. So, certain cross flow plate and frame systems allow the plate and frame to be rotated, allowing more shearing forces and fouling reduction. Plate and frame filters also do not have any feed spacers, which reduces the potential for fouling and they can typically handle high solids concentrations. So, the disadvantage is that low packing density is one of the major problem and low efficiency compared to other configurations and high pressure drop. Other problems that plague the plate and frame system as well, and for dead end systems build up is much greater than the cross flow systems and therefore efficiency becomes lesser. So, next was the tubular membrane modules. So, in the tubular system the membrane modules are like tube like structures with porous walls. So, you can see how it happens. So, this is a single tube, okay. You can see this is actually this is your membrane, okay. right, and you can understand this. Okay. So, the you can see this, they call this area, this is your membrane. Okay. Then above that there will be a support layer. So, this is your support layer, and this is the lumen through which your feed is flowing, right. So, the permeate is coming outside of the this one support, in both sides, and the waste or retentate is being collected at the fag end of the tubular systems. So, this works as a tangential cross flow and are generally used to process difficult free streams such as those with high dissolved solids, so high suspended solids and or oil and grease and fats. So, that means tubular systems are one of the superior systems because they can handle high TDS, high TSS and oil, grease, fats, whatever it is present, they can handle it, whereas spiral wood cannot handle all systems. Even platen foam also has difficulty because of the easy buildup of cake layers there. So, they typically have half inch to 1 inch OD tubes that are packed individually into a long PVC housing and can either be polymer or ceramic based. So, this is how it looks like. You can see how the feed is entering here. This is the cross section. Permeate is coming out of the porous this one, and retentate is coming this side. So, feed entering one side of the tube, retentate is getting collected another side of the tube. You can see these are developed by the Koch membranes actually. So, tubular modules consist of minimum of 2 tubes, one inner tube and another is the outer tube, which is the cell side. So, the feed stream goes across the length of the membrane tube and is filtered out into the outer cell, while concentrate collects at the opposite end of the membrane tube. They are commonly used for applications such as oily wastewater treatment, membrane bioreactor and other high solid processes. This is another just little better understanding or view. You can see this, you can refer it later. So, let us go ahead and understand their advantages and disadvantages. So, tubular systems have less fouling compared to platen frame systems. Tubular systems allow robust cleaning methods such as use of harsh chemicals, backwash and even mechanical cleaning is also possible. They can handle highest solid, this we have already discussed, that they can handle the highest TSS, TDS and emulsified oil load also. The disadvantage is low packing density and large size, right. So, carrying and transportation also is a problem. Packing density of tubular membrane is higher, and because of the large inner diameter of the tubular modules, flow requirements are higher than those of the system configurations. The capital and operating cost for tubular membranes tends to be very high, along with the requirement of the larger footprints for capital equipment. So, let us quickly understand the different types of models for the RO transport. So, the first is the Kadam-Katchalsky model. So, the model includes the entropy generation or energy dissipation function and cross coefficient. We have discussed cross coefficient in our transport, Onsager's reciprocal that we have discussed, right. So, we can write this equation of the water flux as well as salt flux like this. So, JW is the water flux, is LP delta P plus LPD delta pi, and salt flux Js is equals to LDP delta P plus LD delta pi. So, JW and Js are the water and salt flux, whereas LP, LD, LPD and LDP are the phenomenological coefficients. LP is called the filtration coefficients, LPD, LDP are the cross coefficients. Now, as we know this, Onsager suggested that the cross coefficients are equal. So, LPD equals to LDP. So, we can rewrite the equation as water flux equals to LP delta pi minus sigma delta P minus sigma delta pi, and salt flux equals to LW into 1 minus sigma CSLM plus omega delta pi. Now, what are these terms? Now, CSLM is the log mean solute concentration on the upstream and downstream sides of the membrane. Sigma, which is called also the reflection coefficient, is minus LPD by LP, and omega equals to CSLM into LDP LP minus L square PD divided by LP. So, this is actually solute permeability at 0 solvent flux, right. So, the second term in the above equation can be expressed is this actually omega delta pi we can write as PS into Cr minus Cp. Now, PS is the salt permeability and Cr and Cp are the salt concentration on the reject and permeate sides respectively. So, the next model is Spiegler and Kadam model. Now, this model is based on the principle of irreversible thermodynamics. The phenomenological coefficients LP, LD, LDP of Kadam-Katchalsky model show dependence on solute concentrations if the pressure drop at solute concentrations are large. So, this model modified the Kadam-Katchalsky model to remove its deficiency. So, we can write the rejection equals to 1 minus then 1 minus this sigma divided by 1 minus sigma exponential of this particular term. Okay. R naught is the observed rejection, J is the permeate flux, Ps is the solute permeability and sigma is the reflection coefficient. So, the next one is solution diffusion model. So, this model is based on the principle of membrane diffusion through a dense layer. So, we have already discussed solution diffusion in detail. So, just quickly go through the equation. So, Jw equals to dw m Cwm Vw divided by RT del delta p minus delta pi, which can be written as Aw. So, these are actually constants can be grouped together. Now, what is Aw? So, Aw actually is the water permeability. So, Aw is water permeability. So, that is actually all these parameters are constant. So, this is actually water to be grouped as water permeability. So, dWm is the membrane water diffusibility and Cwm is the membrane water concentration and delta P equals to P1 minus P2, delta pi is the osmotic pressure difference and Vw is the molar volume of the solvent. So, you can see that we can write the salt flux equals to DSM Ks by del into C1 minus C2, where C1, C2 are solute concentrations of the feed and permeate side, Js is the solute flux, DSM is the solute diffusivity and Ks is the distribution coefficient. So, under steady state condition, okay, solute diffusing through the membrane and must be equal to the amount of solute to the permeate solution. So, we can write solute flux equals to Zw C2 divided by Cw2. So, Cw2 is the solute solvent concentration in the permeate side. So, we understand, we have already discussed solution diffusion in general. Here we have today learned the equations for the RO specific solution diffusion model. Okay. So, we came to the conclusion of today's lecture. So, these are the text and references, mostly it was taken from this book today, K. Nath, and even this one Richard Baker and Mulder. Okay, so, you can refer all these books for year reading purposes. So, thank you very much. So, I wind up today and next lecture we will focus on the advantages of the RO, fouling things, the various applications of RO and pressure retarded osmosis, one of the most beautiful modified RO systems actually. Okay. And if you have any query, do feel free to write to me at kmohanty@iitg.ac.in. So, thank you very much.